Boots that go on your feet. We're going to talk about them. So there's a few factors that go into picking footwear. I would say for hunting, the main things to look at would be comfort, weight, and durability. The balance of all those three things will give you a pretty good pair of boots, but if you have a pair of footwear that is better in one and severely lacking in the other, you're gonna know about it because it's pretty shit. I've worn a lot of boots in my life, a lot of fucking boots, and I mean a lot of boots. I've got a couple of pairs here, which is just what I currently have in the house to use as the examples, and we'll talk about the pros and cons of each of these different types of boots and what I sort of found having worn them for each pair of those has at least got a couple of years of use into them. So yeah, let's crack it straight into it. Alright, the first pair I'm going to go through, I thought were going to be awesome. They had really good reviews and I found them to be utter shithouse. And that is these Merrells. I don't remember what the model name is. Merrell bloody something or other. Merrell Streep. These things, they were fairly comfortable. They're not that heavy, but they are the hottest fucking things I have ever worn in my entire life. So hot, in fact, that I would go for a hunt for maybe 2 to 3 hours, like a really short hunt, and I would have borderline crumpet foot. If you don't know what crumpet foot is, I'll whack up a sweet photo right here. It leads into trench foot. It's when your foot can't really breathe in the boot, gets wet from your own sweat and turns into mush. That's obviously the massive con of these boots. The pro is they are waterproof, but because they're so short, they're actually only really waterproof up to about that level. They're waterproof up to there. So small puddles, they're good. But as soon as you get water over the top, because they are kind of short, then you get water inside them and they take about 10,000 years to dry because of all this padding you've got in them. That's one of the reoccurring things we're going to talk about when we talk about these boots. Now, there is an old adage when it comes to boots: a pound on the foot is 5 on the back. In short, what that means is the heavier your boots are, the more it's going to impact your back. Humans are not meant to be carrying around heavy things on their feet because, you know, naturally walk around without bloody boots on. So the heavier your boots are, the more it's going to fatigue your back. Now, if you do have back problems like I do, then you will really know about it if you're wearing a heavy pair of boots. So these Merrells are 700 grams each, which means it's 1,400 grams per pair, which is 1.4 kilos. That is fairly heavy, although they are marketed as a lightweight boot. Right, next is a pair of boots I haven't worn in years, a pair of Bates. Look at these bloody monstrosities. Once again, these are Gore-tex lined, as you can probably see on the inside there. Extremely waterproof, extremely hot on your feet, and extremely heavy. So a single boot is just over 1 kilo. 2.2 kilos for a pair. That is absolutely ridiculous. Fuck those off. So I decided to lash out and get some really good hunting boots, recommended to me by a friend. You know, the Duck's Nuts, they're the bee's knees, they're the best boots ever. They're AKGs. Got them imported from England. And that's these right here. Now, they are extremely comfortable, except for they have an incredibly hard sole. And even with inner soles, I do find that on my heels they're a bit hard, but they're a nice wearing boot. They are on the thinner side, so if you do normally wear a wide and you do want to get AKGs, don't get a normal size, get wider, because they are slightly tighter that way on my feet. However, a single weight of a boot is 720 grams, so we're about the same as the pair of Merrells we looked at before. Once again, Gore-tex lined. So they do get incredibly hot. You've probably seen so far a running theme in my boots, and that is that all of them have been this bloody Gore-tex lined bullshit, and this is one of the main reasons why I was having dramas. I have feet that heat up incredibly quickly, and all of this Gore-tex is making my feet heat up even more. I'm getting toe jam and crumpet foot and all sorts of whacked out shit, particularly because I would cross a creek, they would fill up with water, and then that you've now defeated the person having the Gore-Tex boots because they're wet, and they also now don't empty out because they don't have valves in them. So the only way is to tip them up, but they've also got lots of padding, like in here, and they take a long time to dry. So if you get wet feet on the first day of a hunt, you've got wet feet for the rest of the hunt. I decided to try something different. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Ryan. Now, Ryan is a certified legend. He did about 7 or 8 years in the army. He then became a mountaineering guide. He's worked in Patagonia and fallen down a bloody crevasse, and he rock climbs, and he does all this outdoorsy stuff, and he's been in the outdoors industry for about 10 years now. If there's anybody that's going to know anything about boots, it's going to be this guy. So I asked him about boots. I was like, look, this sort of shit is happening to my feet, and what are my options? What should I look at? And his response was pretty much, if you live in mainland Australia and use Gore-Tex boots, you're a fuckwit. And the reason he said this is because it's not fucking cold enough in Australia to warrant having Gore-Tex boots. Unless you're like right at the very top of the Alps, as in the Victorian Alps. And even then he says that you probably don't really need them, particularly if you're not in the snow. And if you are in the snow, you would probably be using snow boots, which is different again from Gore-Tex lined hunting boots or Gore-Tex lined hiking boots. So his recommendation was, unless you're like down in the bloody south of Tasmania, during winter where you're in, slushy crap that he would be trundling through, then you don't need Gore-Tex, and what you should get is a light pair of trail runners. I thought, oh, that's a bloody good idea. So I took his advice and I got a pair of trail runners. So here I have a pair of Solomon something or others. Now let's just whack these on the scales real quick. So a single shoe is 200 grams. So that's a pair, 400 grams. That's pretty bloody light. This did two things for me. It alleviated a lot of the back pain I was getting because I'm not carrying all this extra heavy weight on my feet unnecessarily. It made me able to stalk a hell of a lot quieter because I don't have the heavy sole of the boot hitting the ground, so I don't get that big thump walking around, particularly down game trails where there's not much sticks or whatever. You would still get the thump of the boots. With these, I don't get that. I find that actually sneaking through the bush, I can feel the ground a bit more, and it helps me to stalk. And yeah, just I had days where I would hike the same amount of distance, like the exact same loop that I would do in this particular spot, that I had been doing for years wearing boots, and I did it a couple of times wearing those shoes, and I had almost no back pain, which for me is a big thing because I have a very bad back. Couple of drawbacks though. We'll talk about the cons and we'll talk about some more pros. So a couple of cons is they do have a lot of mesh in them. I don't know if you can really see that, but the mesh does tend to rip. So I've got a little bit there and a little bit down here. Because when you do get it caught up on sticks and whatever, they do tend to rip. But so the durability, it's about 2 doner kebabs out of 5. Everything else you get out of the shoe is amazing. One of the biggest things is they dry incredibly quick. So let's say I'm going out first morning, I get wet feet. By the time I get back to camp, they're probably dry unless I've gone through a few more creeks. But when I take them off overnight, they're dry by the morning. So I have dry shoes throughout the hunt. Another thing you could do if you really wanted was, these are fairly cheap and you could probably just buy 2 pairs. In fact, for the price of those AKG hunting boots, I could afford to buy 3 pairs of these trail runners, and then I could just alternate the shoes every day, have a different pair for each day, etc, etc. So got trail runners, and I have not looked back. I don't see myself ever going back to wearing boots again. I mean, I may do sometimes sometimes I feel like wearing them. I still do wear them every now and again, those AKGs, but more and more often I'm just opting for the trail runner. So footwear is very subjective. No matter what someone says about footwear, it's what works for you. Some people, boots work better. Some people, they don't have feet that heat up as much, and Gore-Tex is perfectly fine for them. Some people like wearing snake gaiters, where you kind of need to have a taller boot so the snake gaiters don't slip up over the top. You can't really wear snake gaiters with a trail runner. But for some people, trail runners might be the go. So If you've been struggling to find some appropriate footwear to go hunting with, particularly if you do suffer from some sort of spinal injury like me, then it may end up helping you out. One thing I would steer clear of though is just lashing out and getting a really expensive pair of boots just for the sake of getting an expensive pair of boots. If you are an outdoorsy kind of person, you probably already have something like a pair of normal runners. They may be your special gym ones and you may not want to wear them into the bush, but if you have an old pair of runners, maybe just start wearing them for a trial before you start lashing out and buying a pair of trail runners. Although trail runners do have a slightly different sole, which will give you more grip, so that may influence your decision as well. But as I said, it's subjective, it's footwear, it's whatever suits you. Don't be a fucking trend follower and just go, oh, I'm going to get these bloody U-Butte boots because all the boys wear them, because all the boys might have different feet from you. So treat your feet right. If you treat your feet right, they'll treat you right. You'll have a better back. You'll have a better hunting experience. You'll be able to hunt further and for longer, for more days in a row, and you're going to have a lot more fun. So, boots, shoes, they're bloody good. Hope you got something out of that. See you next video. Hooroo.